Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of my PAX South wrap-up. Now I am going to waste no time and get straight into the games. The first game I want to show you is a game called Omensight. It's a hack and slash platformer they're hoping to release in the fourth quarter of 2018, but they don't have an actual release date yet. This is one of the first games I played on the show floor, and I instantly knew it was something special. The environments look incredible, you really can't tell that this is an indie game. The demo left me very impressed. The best way I could describe the gameplay is that it kind of feels like a mix of Dustwun Elysian Tale and the original Devil May Cry. And that is a great place to be. Both of those games are outstanding, and I've been looking to scratch that itch for a long time. They also tell me that the game's story takes place from multiple perspectives, which is something that I really like. I like that kind of writing, and that would also mean that you play as different characters. Their demo was outstanding. I even came back to the booth to play it again. It was so good that I almost gave them Game of the Show. So yeah, I'll be looking out for this game, and you should too. Next, we have a game called Children of Morta. This is a roguelike that's planning to release in the summer of 2018 on Steam. It was on Kickstarter, but they're going to be published by 11-Bit Studios. And the artwork and animation in this game is amazing! They must have some really talented people on their team, and the animations are so fluid that I think they might be rotoscoped, I'm not sure though. Whatever it is, the results are gorgeous. But that isn't the only thing that sets this game apart. It has a very strong narrative that takes place around your game. I gotta say, the writing is pretty good, and I liked hearing about different characters that you play as. So I should explain that too. There's different family members that you play, so before you go into the dungeon, you choose a character and you can level up that character as you play. I was told that there's a way that you could level up the whole family together, but I could never figure that out. But you could play the game with local and online multiplayer, so maybe that's how you do it. And you might need a friend because this game is extremely difficult. That's usual for most roguelikes, I mean they're always trying to kill you in every room. But I did feel that there were some times when I was being swarmed with enemies, way more than my character level could handle. And that usually led to me using cheap tactics or the game getting a cheap death, neither of which left me with a good impression. I also have a little bit of an issue with the storytelling. Every time you come back from the dungeon, you get a little bit more of the story. And every now and then there will be something in the dungeon that you get to interact with, a character that you find, and that will trigger a certain part of the story which is relevant to what you just did. Like for example, one time I rescued a wolf cub. So of course that triggered part of the story where you get to see the wolf cub in the home. But not every trip to the dungeon has a story element like that. Most of the time you just go to the dungeon, you die, and then you wind up back at the house. But you'll still unlock a little bit more of the story. So you see, it's not really a flaw, but it just seems like a lot of my actions don't affect the story. And because of that, a lot of the story elements just feel like random cutscenes. I have my complaints, but do not think I'm saying that this is a bad game. The action is tight, the visuals are astounding, and the game runs like they could release it tomorrow. It's very impressive for a Kickstarter project. Alright, now let's check out some more VR. We're going to start with a game called Sprint Vector. This game is going to release in the first quarter of 2018, so very soon. It's a speedrun game, which is very interesting to see in VR. Of course they can't have you running laps through your room or anything, so instead you stand in place but you move with your arms. You swing them back and forth, and the quicker you do that, the faster you go. But it's not just swinging, there's an actual technique to it. You have to put your arm out, and then you click a button, and then you swing. It actually feels more like swimming. But anyway, the game is really neat. I'm very curious to see if this game is going to have its own speedrunning following. The developers tell me that people have already found shortcuts and different ways to improve their time like that, so I do think there's a possibility there. This game is another perfect example of what I call game show VR. It's a lot of fun to watch people play it and compete against each other. It's very high energy. They even describe the game as an adrenaline platformer. They put me in this thing and I looked like a damn fool, but I had a lot of fun. They started me out on the regular demo course, and after that they actually put me head to head with another convention goer. And I won! After a few rounds, especially with that VR headset on, it can get really exhausting. So just be careful, don't hurt yourself. So yeah, this game was really neat, I hope it does well. The same developer was also showing off another VR title called Raw Data. This game is in early access, it's been there since October of 2017. It's an arcade shooter, and from what I understand, you're a hacker, and while you're hacking into things, you have to fight off robots. It's a pretty simple premise, but the game works really well. Especially with the robot designs, it remind me of those old Terminator 2 arcade cabinets. So I didn't expect that, but I think VR might be trying to elbow in on that market. And I have to say, one of the things I really enjoy about the VR marketplace is just monitoring what it's trying to do, where it's trying to fit in. Are VR games their own thing, or do they supplement existing genre? I'm not sure I have the answer to that yet. I mean, on one hand you have Sprint Vector, which is a pretty original idea, and then on the other hand you have Raw Data, which seems to be like a shooter that you saw in arcades 20 years ago. VR is a fascinating market to watch. Alright, next we have a game called Dustwun. This is an open world survival game which is going to release on PC and then hopefully Xbox and PS4. The gameplay has a lot of elements inspired by Don't Starve, but to me it looks like it was influenced by Breath of the Wild. And let me tell you guys, this game is a buggy fucking mess, but I love it! The game looks like it's in alpha right now, and while I was demoing it, there were several bugs I ran into which prevented me from progressing. So that's a big problem. They have a lot of bug catching to do. But as I told you, even with the bugs, I am seriously looking forward to this game. You could tell that underneath that, there could be a very good game here. In this game, you're a space explorer who crash landed on a planet and now you have to survive. You do that by gathering resources, by crafting, also defending yourself against enemies, and figuring out what's going on with this planet you're stuck on. There seem to be hints of an ancient civilization that's no longer there, and that's all I know about the story so far. The game world gives you about 10 miles to explore, the environments range from forest to desert, and you can also put together a motorcycle for easier travel. And the art style of this game really pulled me in. There's just something about the way the ship and the character are designed. It looks like old sci-fi, but not Western sci-fi. It feels like they took inspiration from like Russian sci-fi movies like Solaris. It's the way everything is designed. I mean, there's tubing all over the place. It all looks very functional, like nothing was made for aesthetics or comfort. I like that look, and it's surprising because the dev team is from LA. The team has a lot of work to do, but I like what I see. They're definitely not lacking in imagination. A lot of their ideas I saw were really thinking outside the box. Your little ejection pod that protected you on impact is edible. It's made of jelly and you could craft with it. And I was thinking, you know, that's not a bad idea. I mean, imagine if there was such a thing as an edible parachute. It would probably save someone's life. So yeah, I believe in this team and their game. I think it's really going to turn into something special. The next game is Clusterpuck 99. This is a local, multiplayer-only title for the Switch. It is highly intuitive. It plays like a mix between air hockey and soccer. You play as a puck, and you have to guide another puck to the opponent's goal. That simplicity is a big strong suit for this game. Their booth was always busy because they could really just grab people out of the crowd, give them a 10-second tutorial, and then they're into the game. The controls are just the analog stick and 2 buttons. One button gives you a little shove, and the other one lets you shoot the puck if you're holding it. That's it. You can play single player against the AI or up to 8 players. Now this is not a new game. It started off on the Xbox One and now they're launching on Switch. With the Switch they polished it up just a little bit, they improved the UI and now there are over 30 arenas. I gotta tell you, I didn't think much of this game when I first saw it, but they really did nail down that on-the-couch multiplayer style of gameplay. If you have a Switch, this would make for a really good party game for friends who don't really game that much. Next, I saw a game called Charge Throw. This is a simple versus game. You can play local multiplayer or against the AI. It's going to release on Steam in March. The goal is to use this ball to destroy your enemy's stone god face thing. It's a fun game, but it's very challenging. I was not able to beat it. Its creator tells me that he was inspired by games like Video Ball and Nidhogg. And get this, he's 15 years old, and this is his 3rd game! Yes, viewer, you are doing nothing with your life. He really did an awesome job here, and he's planning to add more stuff like additional power-ups. You can also try out the game right now on itch.io. It plays in browser. I'll leave a link below, it's worth checking out, and trust me, keep an eye on this kid, this is really impressive stuff. Then behind closed doors at 505 Games, I checked out Underworld Ascendant. I'm not too familiar with the Underworld games, I've never played one, but from what I hear, it was actually a really big franchise not too long ago. And they rebooted the franchise with this game on Kickstarter. On the face of it, this doesn't look like a game that I would play. It looks like Morrowind or Skyrim, and I'm just not into those. But they did hook me into this game with something that they call player-authored gameplay. The best way to describe this is that they're going to have puzzles in the game which don't have a strict way to solve them. They encourage you to use everything in your environment to get to the next objective. So let's say there's a locked door in front of you. Well, you could set it on fire, you could break it down, you don't have to use a key. But there's risk and reward, maybe doing that is going to draw enemies to you. So you might decide you want to find the key or pick the lock instead. I like that, and it creates a living world where you know that certain things behave a certain way and you could use that to your advantage. But by far the coolest thing I saw is that your character can get like this telekinetic ability and move blocks and objects everywhere. The last time I saw that used well in a game was in Psyops a few generations ago. I've really been wanting to use that again, so I'm looking forward to this game. It's in pre-alpha at the moment, but I gotta say they're doing really well for being that early in development. And from what I saw there, it looks like it's shaping up into a Kickstarter success story. Alright, and now moving on to a game which is going to be on Kickstarter, this is Super Retro Maker. This game is very similar to Super Mario Bros. Crossover. You get to select a character inspired by an NES game, like Ninja Gaiden or Zelda 2 or Metroid, and then you play through levels that the community made. So yeah, they're also mixing Super Mario Maker into this. This is a really neat idea, and if they can pull it off, it could be awesome. What they showed off at PAX South was like a showcase of what the characters and levels would look like. I'm glad that they showed that it works, but I was a little bit underwhelmed by it. It's obvious that they're just sprite swapping and changing abilities for each character, so I didn't like it that they all move the same way. I would have liked to see some variety there, but it's still very early in development. They haven't even launched their Kickstarter, so I'd like to see where this thing goes. The Kickstarter will begin in the summer of this year. Right now they're only planning on a Steam release, but they will have stretch goals for consoles. And lastly, I have a game called Pato Box. This is a fighting adventure game, and it is mesmerizing. Their art style is gorgeous. It really feels like comics drawn with pen and paper. The animation on boss characters is incredibly well done. You would really think that this game had backing from a major studio. But no, instead they were on Kickstarter in March of last year. They were successful. It's made by a team in Mexico, and they plan to release in March of 2018. It will initially be on Steam, but it's also going to release on Switch and Vita. You'll notice that this game is very similar to Punch-Out. The inspiration is unmistakable. But it's much more than that. Like I said, it's an adventure fighting game. There's a lot of exploration, you have to find clues. It's a really great twist on Punch-Out. The game takes place in a building, and each floor has its own boss battle, so you progress up each floor, and of course the top floor is the final boss. The game has a fair amount of challenge to it, and like Punch-Out, the bosses have their own patterns that they follow, which you can memorize and exploit. As a kid that grew up with Punch-Out, I am really looking forward to this release. And that's going to do it for part 2. But we're not done yet. Make sure to tune in tomorrow because I'm going to reveal the game of the show. The best game I played at PAX South. And again, I apologize for the late uploads. My throat is still out of whack. It took forever to record these. But I'm starting to get back on track, so thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.